What's wrong with your face? Who did this to you?
I fell.
The morning sun barely touched the floors of the mansion when Hyun-woo descended the grand staircase. His footsteps were silent, calculated, like everything else about him. At 34, he'd built an empire that made men twice his age bow their heads in respect and fear. His tailored black suit held no creases, his dark hair was perfectly styled, and his expression revealed nothing. But something was off today. Ava stood in the corner of the main hall, her back turned, shoulders hunched as she arranged fresh flowers in the crystal vase. Her usual grace was missing, replaced by stiff, hurried movements. Ava. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. She flinched. In the 6 months she'd worked here, he'd never seen her do that. "Good morning, Mr. Kim," she said without turning around. Her voice sounded strained, tight. Hyun-woo's eyes narrowed. He crossed the room in 5 long strides and positioned himself where he could see her face. That's when he saw it. A dark, crimson stain marked her left cheekbone, partially hidden beneath makeup that hadn't quite done its job. Her bottom lip was swollen on one side, and when she finally met his gaze, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Fear. "What happened to your face?" "I fell. Last night. It's nothing, really." She turned back to the flowers, her hands trembling so badly that a white lily slipped from her fingers and tumbled to the floor. Hyun-woo didn't move. He'd interrogated enough people to know a lie when he heard one. But this wasn't business. This was Ava, the woman who hummed old soul songs while she cleaned, who left sticky notes with terrible jokes on his coffee maker, who somehow made this cold mansion feel less empty. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. Ava's hands stilled. Slowly, she turned, and he saw the full extent of it. Not just the blood stain, but the finger-shaped bruises peeking out from beneath her collar. The way she held her left arm close to her body. The defeat in her brown eyes that no amount of pride could hide. "Everyone out," he said quietly. His 3 guards, positioned at various points in the room, exchanged glances but obeyed without question. The heavy doors closed with a soft thud. "Mr. Kim, please, I need this job. I promise it won't happen again. I'll cover it better. Who did this to you?" Ava's lips pressed together. A single tear escaped down her cheek, and she wiped it away quickly, as if crying was something shameful. "It doesn't matter. It matters to me." Those 4 words hung in the air between them. Hyun-woo hadn't meant to say them with such intensity, but there they were, raw and honest. Ava's shoulders began to shake. Then, like a dam breaking, everything poured out. "His name is Marcus. We've been together for 2 years. He wasn't always like this, I swear. After my ex-husband left, Marcus helped with bills, with my daughter. But then, he started controlling everything. Where I go, who I talk to, how I spend money. Last night, I told him I got a raise here, and he said I was probably sleeping with you to get it. When I defended myself, her voice cracked. I have an 8-year-old daughter, Mr. Kim. Zoe. He knows where she goes to school. He said if I ever left him or told anyone, he'd make sure I never saw her again." Hyun-woo's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. A cold rage settled over him. The kind that made him dangerous. The kind that had built his reputation. But when he spoke, his voice was surprisingly gentle. "Does Zoe know?" "No. I always make sure she's asleep before things get bad." "Where is she now?" "My neighbor watches her in the mornings before school." Hyun-woo pulled out his phone and made a call. "Min-jun. Send 2 men to," he glanced at Ava, who whispered an address. "Send 2 of our best, discreet. Protection detail for an 8-year-old girl and her guardian. No one approaches them without clearance." "Yes. Now." Ava's eyes went wide. "Mr. Kim, you don't have to. What's Marcus's full name and address? I can't ask you to get involved in my mess. You've been nothing but kind to me, and I won't drag you into—" "Ava." He stepped closer, and she instinctively stepped back until her spine hit the wall. but he didn't crowd her. Instead, he maintained just enough distance to feel safe while making sure she heard every word. I'm already involved. The moment you walked through my door with his marks on you, I became involved. Now give me his information, or I'll find it myself. Your choice is only whether you help me or not. She told him everything. Marcus Johnson lived in a rundown apartment complex on the east side, the kind of place where people minded their business because asking questions got you hurt. He was a shift manager at a warehouse, played cards on weekends, and had a reputation for talking big. When Hyun-woo and 2 of his men arrived at 8 p.m. that evening, Marcus was home. They could hear his television through the thin walls. Hyun-woo knocked. Once. Twice. The door swung open, and Marcus stood there in a stained tank top and basketball shorts, a beer in his hand. He was 6'2", broad-shouldered, with the kind of build that intimidated normal people. Yeah? The hell do you want? Hyun-woo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Marcus Johnson. We need to talk about Ava. Marcus's expression changed from irritation to recognition to fear in the span of 3 seconds. Everyone in this city knew Hyun-woo Kim's face, even if they'd never met him. Look, man. I don't want any trouble. Whatever she told you. She told me you put your hands on her. Multiple times. She told me you threatened her daughter. Hyun-woo's voice was conversational. Almost friendly. That's what made it terrifying. Now, I'm going to give you 2 options, and I suggest you choose carefully. Marcus tried to puff up his chest. You can't come here threatening me. I got rights. I'll call the cops. One of Hyun-woo's men chuckled darkly. Option 1. Hyun-woo continued as if Marcus hadn't spoken. You never speak to Ava again. Forget she exists. If I hear you've even driven down her street, what happens next will be the last mistake you ever make. And option 2? Hyun-woo's smile widened. There is no option 2. I just wanted you to feel like you had a choice. Marcus's hand tightened around his beer bottle. For a moment, it looked like he might try something stupid. Then, reality set in. This wasn't some woman he could bully. This was Hyun-woo Kim, and the 2 men flanking him looked like they ate guys like Marcus for breakfast. Fine. Whatever. She wasn't that good anyway. Hyun-woo's hand shot out faster than Marcus could blink, gripping his throat and slamming him against the doorframe. The beer bottle shattered on the ground. I'm C. We have the taken. Let me be crystal clear, Hyun-woo said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. If you ever speak about her like that, again, I won't send warnings. I won't have conversations. I'll erase you from existence so thoroughly that people will forget you ever lived. Do we understand each other? Marcus nodded frantically, his face turning red. Hyun-woo released him and stepped back, smoothing his jacket as if nothing had happened. Enjoy your evening, Marcus. 3 hours later, Hyun-woo pulled up to Ava's small apartment. The lights were on in the second-floor unit. He'd texted her that he was coming, didn't want to frighten her. She opened the door before he could knock. Still in her work clothes, her face scrubbed clean of makeup. The injuries looked worse without it. Did you? He won't bother you again. I made sure of it. Ava's hand flew to her mouth, and fresh tears spilled over. But these were different. These were relief. Thank you. God, thank you so much. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You don't need to repay me, but we need to talk about your living situation. This apartment complex doesn't have security, and your locks are substandard. I have a property about 10 minutes from here. 3 bedrooms, gated community, security system. It's empty. You and Zoe should move there. Mr. Kim, I can't accept that. I can't afford. It's part of your employment package. Consider it a housing benefit. Ava laughed through her tears, a sound that hit him square in the chest. You're making that up. Completely. But you'll still accept it because you're smart enough to know it's the right choice for Zoe. Before Ava could respond, a small voice came from behind her. Mama, who's at the door? A little girl appeared, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She had her mother's eyes, and a halo of curly hair pulled into 2 puffs. She looked at Hyunwoo with open curiosity rather than fear. Zoe, baby, this is Mr. Kim. He's Mama's boss. You're really tall, Zoe observed. Hyunwoo found himself crouching down to her level, something he'd never done for anyone. You're very observant. What's that mean? It means you notice things. That's a good quality. Zoe beamed. Mama says I notice too much sometimes. Your mama is very smart. Are you the reason those nice men were at my school today? Miss Rosa said they were making sure I was safe. Hyunwoo glanced up at Ava, who was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Yes. I wanted to make sure you and your mama are always safe. Like a superhero? Something like that. Zoe considered this seriously. Okay. You can stay for dinner if you want. We're having spaghetti. Mama makes the best spaghetti. And that's how Hyunwoo Kim, one of the most feared men in the city, found himself sitting at a cramped kitchen table, eating slightly overcooked spaghetti, while an 8-year-old told him about her science project on butterflies. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange new rhythm. Ava and Zoe moved into the apartment Hyunwoo provided. It was in a safe neighborhood with good schools, and for the first time in years, Ava slept through the night without jumping at every sound. She still worked at the mansion, but things were different now. Hyunwoo found excuses to be wherever she was working. They'd talk. Not boss and employee, but 2 people discovering each other. One night, long after everyone else had left, Ava found Hyunwoo in his study, staring at an old photograph. You're still here. Ah, he said without looking up. I could say the same to you. He turned the photograph toward her. It showed a young Korean woman with kind eyes and a shy smile. My mother, he explained. She died when I was 12. Ava moved closer, studying the image. She was beautiful. She was also trapped in a marriage with a violent man. My father was a powerful businessman, well respected. No one knew what happened behind closed doors. She stayed because she thought she was protecting me, that leaving would make things worse. His voice was hollow. She was wrong. He killed her in a drunken rage one night, made it look like an accident. Hyunwoo. It was the first time she'd used his first name. When I saw you that morning with blood on your face, all I could see was her. All those times she tried to hide the bruises, the split lips, the broken ribs. I swore after she died that I would never let another woman suffer like that. Not if I had the power to stop it. Ava's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. Naturally. Your mother would be proud of the man you became. Would she? I've done terrible things, Ava. Built an empire on fear and blood. You also protected a stranger and her daughter when you didn't have to. You gave us safety when we had none. That's what she'd see. They stood there in the dim light of the study, hands clasped, both understanding that something fundamental had shifted between them. I'm falling for you, Hyunwoo said quietly. I shouldn't be. You work for me. You're dealing with trauma. The timing is terrible, but I can't seem to stop it. Ava's breath caught. I feel it too. You scare me, but not in the way Marcus did. You scare me because I want to trust you, and trust has only hurt me before. That's what scares me most. Hyunwoo turned to face her fully, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek, careful of the fading bruises. Then let's be scared together. When he kissed her, it was soft, tentative, asking permission with every second. Ava melted into it, her hands gripping his shirt as if he might disappear. But happiness in Hyunwoo's world was never simple. 4 weeks after their first kiss, Marcus resurfaced. He'd been drinking with his friends, working up courage and rage in equal measure. He'd been humiliated, threatened, forced to slink away like a coward. His pride couldn't take it. So he waited outside Zoe's school with two of his buddies, planning to grab the girl and force Ava to come back to him. They never got close. Hyunwoo's security detail saw them the moment they approached the school grounds. Within minutes, Marcus and his friends were restrained, Zoe was whisked away to safety, and Hyunwoo received a phone call that made his blood turn to ice. He found Ava at the school, holding a sobbing Zoe, both of them surrounded by his men. He tried to take her. Ava gasped when she saw him. He actually tried to take my baby. Hyunwoo knelt in front of them, his usual composure cracking. She's safe. You're both safe. I promise you, this ends tonight. Where is he? Being held. Waiting for me. Ava grabbed his arm. Don't kill him. Please. I don't want that on your conscience because of me. He tried to kidnap your daughter. I know. But there are other ways. Legal ways. Your connections can make sure he goes to prison. Right? Not just a slap on the wrist? Hyunwoo studied her face, seeing the strength beneath the fear. She wasn't asking for him to let Marcus go. She was asking him to be better than his worst instincts. For you, he said finally. Only for you. Marcus Johnson was arrested that night. With Hyunwoo's connections and resources, the DA had an airtight case within 48 hours. Assault, attempted kidnapping, stalking, violation of a restraining order. Hyunwoo had helped Ava file. Marcus would spend the next 8 years behind bars. But the incident had consequences beyond Marcus's fate. Minjun, Hyunwoo's second-in-command and cousin, confronted him 2 days later in his office. The men are talking, Minjun said without preamble. About you and the maid. Her name is Ava. Her name doesn't matter. What matters is that you're compromised, making decisions based on emotion rather than logic, putting organization resources toward a personal matter. Hyunwoo's eyes went cold. Are you questioning my leadership? I'm questioning your judgment. This woman and her child have made you soft. What happens when our enemies realize that? When they see you have a weakness they can exploit? Then, I'll handle it. Like I've handled everything else. By going to war over a woman? Hyung, think about what you're doing. She's not one of us. She doesn't understand this life. And that little girl, careful, Hyunwoo warned, his voice dropping dangerously low. Be very careful about what you say next. Minjun ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I'm trying to protect you. Protect what we've built. Your father would never have. My father was a monster who beat my mother to death. If you're using him as a moral compass, we have bigger problems than my relationship with Ava. The room fell silent. Minjun's jaw worked, but no words came out. Injun's, withers a love. I make my own choices, Hyunwoo continued. I always have. Ava and Zoe are under my protection, and they will remain so. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave. That includes you, cousin. Minjun stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I hope you know what you're doing. So do I. 6 months later, everything had changed. Ava no longer worked as a maid. Hyunwoo had discovered she had a business degree she'd never been able to use, so he put her in charge of managing his legitimate enterprises, restaurants, real estate, import businesses. She was brilliant at it, bringing an organization and attention to detail that impressed even his most skeptical associates. Zoe thrived. She called Hyunwoo Uncle Woo, and had started taking taekwondo lessons that he insisted on personally supervising. He was surprisingly patient with her, never raising his voice, always encouraging. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, the three of them were at the park. Zoe was on the swings, pumping her legs and laughing as she went higher and higher. She's fearless, Hyunwoo observed, watching her. She gets that from you, Ava said, leaning into his side. From me? You taught her it's okay to be strong, that she doesn't have to make herself small to make others comfortable. That's a gift. Hyun-woo was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Ava's breath stopped. I know it's fast, he said, turning to face her fully. I know we've been through hell to get here. I know my world is dangerous and complicated, and not what you probably imagined for yourself. He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. But I also know that I've never felt more human than I do when I'm with you and Zoe. You make me want to be better. You make me believe I can be better. Tears streamed down Ava's face. Ava Williams, will you marry me? Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and when he kissed her, Zoe's delighted shriek carried across the playground. Mama's getting married! Uncle Woo's gonna be my uncle for real? They laughed, pulling Zoe into their embrace. The three of them forming a unit that 6 months ago would have seemed impossible. That night, after Zoe was asleep, Ava and Hyun-woo sat on the balcony of the mansion under the stars. Are you scared? He asked. Terrified, she admitted, but not of you. I'm scared I'll wake up and this will all be a dream. That I'll be back in that old apartment, afraid and alone. You're never going to be alone again. Luda, 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 that's my promise to you. You've already kept so many promises. Then what's one more? I love you, Hyun-woo Kim. I love you. Ava Williams. Soon to be Ava Kim. They stayed there until dawn broke over the city, two people who'd found each other in the darkest circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from the ashes. Because sometimes, the person who seems most dangerous is actually the one who will protect you the fiercest. Sometimes, love finds you when you've stopped looking for it. And sometimes, the best endings come from the worst beginnings. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it and haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotional tale. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all around the world. See you in the next one.